welcome to another episode of Wine and Chisme. And look, so many of us did not grow up with mental health being at the forefront of our families, especially if you grew up in a Latino family, even a Black family. I don't know how other communities of color were, but I know that particularly in those things, we kind of sweep things under. But today, we're not sweeping it under the rug. We are bringing it all out to the forefront. And I am here with Adriana Martinez. She is a licensed Latina therapist based out of the Bay Area. Hola, Adriana. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I've been
I'm so
wanting to
excited
be
to
on the
have
podcast
you.
for a while. So,
Really?
yeah,
Oh, that
yeah,
makes me so
yeah, yeah.
happy.
I discovered you in the pandemic. I think that's when you had just started,
Yeah.
maybe. And
Oh
I
my
don't know how I
gosh.
landed. I think it was Clubhouse days. And I think you were on Clubhouse at some point, and I
Yes.
just
Yes.
followed you because I always like to follow baddies that are Latinas and doing something for the community. So that's where I like started following you. ¿Se te
You
enchinó la piel?
literally just, yes, you totally just gave me chills right now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is, thank you. First of all, let me just say thank you so much for listening for all of these years. We are, at the end of this season, we're going to hit 300 episodes. And
Yes.
it just makes me like emotional because I remember those days, right? I remember being in the midst of them, and we had just launched right before all of the craziness.
Yes.
We launched
Yes.
in February, and everything happened like a couple weeks later.
Yes.
And to know how far I have been able to come since then, and how many people I've been able to have on the podcast now. It hasn't been 300, but it's absolutely over 200 because
That's
we've had a couple of
amazing.
repeats, but I would say it's probably around, I would say
That
maybe close to 250 guests at
I
least.
mean, that's something to celebrate. And everybody and their mom and their tia started a podcast, right? But not everybody
Yeah.
maintained it, because people
Yeah.
went back into the world. So this is very impressive, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. And then I also love that you have wine in the, as part of the gig. So it's been nice. And I just took a chance at like reaching out to you because I remember when I heard it, I was like on my phone, you were asking for the call out, and I remember the day before saying, I'm going to say yes to more things. And then, of course, ahí estás tú asking for a call out. And I said, okay, I'm going to say yes. Y a ver si me llama. And you did. So I appreciate you. And thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. See, it's just meant to be, right? Sometimes we don't realize the opportunities that could be there. I grew up and my mom would always say, the answer is always no if you don't ask the question.
100%.
And she like really nailed that into my mind, right? And
Right.
I don't think when I was younger, I don't know if I really got it. Like I didn't really understand that, but my mom would be like, "Mija, just go, just ask, just ask. The answer is always no if you don't ask." Because I would be like, "Well, mom, what if they say no?" And she goes, "But what if they say yes?" The answer,
Yeah.
that's how it came. She's like, "But what if they say yes?" Because if you don't answer, it's automatically no.
Right. Right.
And and so I think, you kind of get over that fear of no,
Yeah.
because like again, if you don't ask, that's the automatic answer. But
Right.
just that
Right.
little inkling of what if they say yes, it just,
Yeah, and that's what I was like, you know what? I mean, I have to keep taking shots because you don't make every shot. But if you
yeah,
think you're going to make every shot and you only take two shots, like there goes your, probability goes down. So I was like, well, let's see what
exactly.
happens. And so the timing of your call out for more speakers was great, and I'm just happy to be here and just para
Oh.
chismear a little. I mean, I think mental health and therapy can feel very serious, but
And that's
honestly,
why we need the wine.
yeah. Exactly. Yes.
So I'm going to read your bio and then we will get into, like I said, whatever we're drinking and then into the chisme. So Adriana Martinez, LCSW, is a Latina therapist, university professor, entrepreneur, and amateur comedian based in the San Francisco Bay Area. She's a human first and the founder of Tonai. Okay, I know this is a different, like, is it Tonai?
Tonali. No,
To,
tonali.
okay,
Like an L.
I wasn't sure if it was an L or like Spanish if it was the Y, Tonali therapy and consulting, a practice rooted in the belief that healing happens in relationship and that no one should have to shrink themselves to be seen or loved. In her clinical work, Adriana primarily supports Latina women navigating family and cultural pressures, attachment wounds, relational trauma, and the slow work of healing from perfectionism, shame, and the constant worry of not being enough. Girl, you just described my life in that sentence. Born in Mexico and brought to California as a toddler, Adriana was raised in the middle of three children. She's been a young single mom in grad school, a daughter holding a lot quietly, and a woman who spent most of her life navigating depression while still somehow loving her life. Her path hasn't followed the cultural script she was handed, and she's built a life that breaks the mold. She speaks openly about her mental health journey and her lived experience with repeated pregnancy loss, a life altering illness, and the complicated beauty of choosing herself while healing from intergenerational trauma. She's now 2 years out from breast cancer diagnosis and getting married this July. So, congratulations, first of all, on being a breast cancer survivor. My mom has gone through it twice.
Oh,
I've had a son. I have to go get another. I've gotten sonogram because I have dense breast tissue.
yeah,
So I
same.
have to go. I do get the sonogram, and the best thing that they told me was I have boring breast tissue.
Oh, okay. I'll
And
take it in
they're
that
like, you have
context.
boring breast tissue, which means like they don't see anything, right? And my response
Mhm.
is, as long as now my husband, but then my boyfriend, I was like, the only person who can't say that, who should never say that, is my boyfriend.
Yeah, I love it. No, I'll take that 100% in that context. Yes, but thank you and congratulations to your mom for surviving it twice. I have a mom that's a two-time survivor as well.
Let me ask you a question, and I know this might sound really like, was it in the same breast or different breast
The cancer for myself as my mom.
for your mom?
Oh, my mom and myself, both of us. Oh no, so for my
Yeah,
mom, she's
she
a
said
two-time
twice,
cancer
right?
survivor, but one was uterine cancer and one was breast cancer. So
Oh my
it was like a
gosh,
double whammy for
girl.
her. Yes, and she was in her early 30s when she had the uterine cancer, and then she was diagnosed before me, 1 year before me. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. So
Wow.
yeah, that was a big hit for our family. First her went through it, then me, and in between that, pregnancy loss for me. It's been quite a few years in grieving and managing and holding space for others as a therapist and, doing all the things.
Yeah. Oh wow. That's crazy. My mom had it twice in the same breast, and she had a
Oh,
mastectomy.
really? Oh, she
Yeah,
did.
she
See,
had a
that would have shook me.
mastectomy. Yeah, and so it was very like the second time, the first time, we in our family, and this goes into, I guess, therapy and how people change, like how handle things. We handle things
Yeah.
with a lot of humor and laughter
Yes.
because, and I think that's one of the things that even that I know attracted me to my husband, right? Is because even when I want to be super mad at him, he makes me laugh, and I'm like, I hate you because I
I
can't be
want to
mad
be
at you.
angry.
Yeah, I want to
Stop making
be laugh.
jokes.
Yeah. But in our family, we do that a lot.
Yes.
Um, when my mom, I was living in Texas at the time, and when my mom had to shave her head, when she started losing her head and she shaved her head, she was
Yeah.
like, Mija, I have rivers in my head. And I'm like,
Oh.
rivers? What are you talking about? And then when I saw her, I was like, oh, you're right. You do have rivers. You better put a wig on that lady. That's an ugly shaved head. Like, so stuff like that, where
Yeah.
you have
Yeah,
to
it's a
find
source of our
laughter in those things.
resilience. Our resilience is in that humor sometimes, right? And our pain. Our pain is in that humor of being able to move past something really difficult. My family's the same. Everybody son bien chistosos, this and that, which could be really helpful, but sometimes, especially if you've done your own healing and your work, you're like, but it's not funny. And then you kind of start having that self-awareness that like, if you're laughing, then you're not feeling something else, which is okay if that's what you need to do to survive. But there is that like
Yeah.
self-awareness of realizing, okay, well, what do I really feel instead of, covering what the feelings are. But hey, I was in survival mode during both physically and emotionally during my treatment, and I was making jokes even right after my surgery, on top of because I was high, with all the drugs.
Yeah.
And here I am, right, making jokes. But like I was using humor, and I mean it did carry me through. It carried me through.
Oh, same. Like I had a hysterectomy a little over about a year and a half ago now.
Yeah.
And they were able to rule out cervical cancer because they didn't. But after the surgery, they told me, like, well, first of all, I ended up like in the hospital the year before that for a week, almost literally almost died. And
Mm,
then the following year, I had my hysterectomy, and I knew I had endometriosis, and I knew I had um, fibroids. I knew I had fibroids for a long time. We had an idea I might have had endometriosis, but it didn't really get confirmed till the year I had surgery.
yeah.
Then, um, my husband told me that they had to take out my appendix while they were in there. I had to have two surgeons because
Oh my
so
goodness.
and my uterus had was enlarged and fused to my colon. So I had to have two surgeons in there to do different things. So
Oh
I
my
joked
goodness.
that I was like, I'm an overachiever. I had all of the things. I had
Yeah.
fibroids, endometriosis, enlarged uterus that was fused to my colon, and
Yeah.
my appendix were wrapped around my ovaries. Woohoo,
You're like,
overachiever me.
I
Yeah.
win.
Don't tell me about what you
Yeah.
got. I got it all.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. They had to do surgery on my belly because they took tissue from my belly to reconstruct my breast because that was my choice. Of course, I went hard and instead of doing just a replacement. I was like, no, do the belly. And of course, I was like, oh, I'm getting a tummy tuck and this and that. But I mean, it's just a way to cope because at the end of the day, I was devastated, that I was going to have
Yeah.
all sorts of like surgeries and yeah, but hey, like I said, it's a survival thing, and I get it and I see it, and it is cultural, right? It is cultural.
Yeah.
I do
Oh,
think a lot of
absolutely.
Latino families, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I
somos
mean, look at the
chistosos.
nicknames that we give each other too, right? Like that's a
Yes,
whole other thing I'm sure we'll get
that,
into. But before we go into all of the other
yes.
things, this definitely deserves a sip of something. So what do you have for us today?
Okay, so I have a wine that's called Ceja. It's a Mexican
Yes,
American
to
winery.
have
Yes, do you know it?
vineyards.
Yes,
Yes.
it's out of
We
Sonoma
love to have
County, and it's actually for special occasion because I usually don't touch this wine. But yes, so that's what I'm drinking, a red
I'm
wine.
so happy that you have it. So Amelia is like the matriarch of Ceja Wines, and she's like so teeny tiny. And I've
Yes.
got to like talk to her a few times. We haven't done like a formal podcast with Ceja Vineyards yet, but she is the sweetest woman.
Oh,
And
I
Delia, her daughter, is the one of the ones who owns it with them as well. And she is they're just such a beautiful family. They are awesome. So that makes me so happy.
yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm giving them a shout out. I have not met them. I have not gone to the winery, even though I'm so close. But my partner, he's part of a lawyers association, and they use Latino owned, wine. So they like to promote, Latino businesses, and so we have
All
some at
right.
home.
I'm gonna send you the directory. I'm gonna make sure you have the directory because
Yes,
there are
please.
over 100 brands on there of Latino owned wine brands. I am actually having a Georgian wine today. So I had this distributor reach out to me earlier in the year called Qveveri Rhine, Georgia. And they sent me like a half a case of Georgian wine, Georgian like from the country, which is the oldest wine making area in the world.
Mhm.
And so this is what I have. It's a Saperavi Qvevri, and it's
Oh,
a dry
delicious.
red wine. And uh, Saperavi is actually the oldest grape in the world.
Oh.
And uh, the way that they ferment their wine is in these big, large clay pots. So it's not like what you would normally think, like a wood barrel or steel barrel. There's
Mhm.
these like clay pots that they bury
Wow, that's
underground,
amazing.
or they create like almost like a like where you would find other ones to kind of make sure that it's kind
Hmm.
of in the same vein of that. But
Hmm.
it is these types of grapes have been cultivated for over 8,000 years.
Wow, that must be
Yeah.
delicious.
So I just opened it. I let it
Okay.
breathe. So this is the first time I am having this wine, so I get to
Oh,
have it with
good. It's
you.
special. Yeah, it's special for both of
Yes.
us. Cheers, salud.
Salud. Oh, this smells so good.
This is so smooth.
Oh my gosh, this definitely
Yeah.
smells like currant and blackberry and dark cherry, like the black cherries, those really dark cherries.
Yes. Mine, I don't really like acidic things
That's
that are
so
acidic
good.
and I'm sensitive, and this one's just so smooth. So it's
Oh,
delicious.
yeah, this is definitely a dry wine. Plum, that's what I was like, I know I smell blackberry, but this is so good.
Mm.
I'm gonna
Now,
be having it.
do you prefer dry wines? Like the,
I do. I'm a dry wine I mean, I honestly, it really depends on my mood. Like summertime in the middle of the
yeah,
heat, I don't want a dry wine.
yeah.
Like I want something really fruity,
Hmm. Hmm.
really um chill that I can chill or have cold. I want something that's gonna just linger on the palate a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, right now, it's actually nice here in San Diego. Not actually. May gray. You guys are gray all the time in the Bay
Yes.
Area, but in Southern
The sun
California,
came out today.
yeah, we get the May gray, the June gloom, where in the morning it's really like
Yes.
overcast and then it burns off by like 11 or 12 and then it's sunny the rest of the day.
Yeah,
But uh like on those really hot days, yeah, I don't want a dry
like a
wine.
dry wine. Yeah.
I
I tend
want
to like dry
something.
wines more. I like Rieslings.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't drink a lot of wine. Unfortunately, I get headaches easily, so I have to be very particular about it and make sure I'm hydrating.
Yes.
But I do love the taste of wine.
Yeah, honestly, that is a big key. Like if you do get headaches, if you're somebody who does like to drink wine, you really do have to drink a lot of
Yes.
water and stuff, which is something
Yes.
I do because I get migraines.
Mm,
They're
oh,
they're
yeah.
they're not triggered by wine, thank goodness.
Okay, my
But
sister-in-law does get triggered by wine and she gets migraine. So I'm like, "Oh, what a bummer." She's like, but sometimes I just know that's what's going to happen and I just do it. I mean, you do what you got
yeah,
to
you're
do if
like,
you really want that glass of wine.
yeah, they're not triggered. Actually, mine are more triggered by stress more than
Mm,
anything else. Like if
mm.
I'm really stressed out and then all of a sudden I start blinking a lot, then I see the spots, like I start getting
Oh,
spots
wow.
under my right eye. It's not ever
Yeah.
I don't ever get the spots on under my left eye. It's always my right eye.
Oh, no.
And then it just starts
And then
pounding
you know it's
and
happening. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Gosh. Well, I'm sorry you
it's
get
terrible.
migraines. I have a lot of people in my life that do, and thankfully I don't. I do have really bad headaches, but I don't know what it's like to have like a real, true, like intense migraine.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then certain rides too. Certain rides will trigger that. So my nephew gets
Oh,
them as well. And there's certain things that he can't, like me and him won't be able to ride because we'll end up, with migraines and
with
throwing up
migraines.
and all
Oh my
that. So
goodness.
yeah.
Oh,
But onto the chisme. So how old, because you say you grew up in Mexico, how old were you when you moved to the US?
I had just turned 1, so my birthday, I'm a September baby, and we came in December. And so it was just, I was just 1. I was just a little over 1. I came with my older brother, and my younger brother was born here, and my parents. Yeah.
So
So
you like really grew up in California,
yes,
like born in Mexico, but
yes,
really a Cali
yes,
girl at
yes.
heart.
100%. Yeah, so I tell people that I'm an immigrant by definition, but more of a first gen by like experience, right? I can
Yeah.
identify more with the first gen experience because I don't remember Mexico, like my parents remember it when they came. And even my older brother, he has very, very vague memories. He's about 2 years older, so he was almost 3 when he came. Yeah.
So have you ever talked to your parents about what led them to move not only to the US, not only to California? I feel like but also where area did they move into the Bay Area from the get-go and what brought them there?
Yeah, so my parents are from Michoacan, born in Michoacan. They met in Mexico City. They didn't know each other in Michoacan. They were actually both, they went from Michoacan to Mexico City as babies. So they had a lot of family in Mexico City. They met each other there, and fell in love at like 15. They were like, that's how young their love was. My parents, though, they came from a lot of poverty, right? And so, like, my dad will even say, I mean, he was born in un rancho, like literally on the floor. He's the eldest of seven. So, they're like just growing up in poverty was one of the big things that my dad like decided, well, I don't want my kids to be growing up in this. There's no opportunity here. He had been moving back and forth, traveling, bringing, the thing that people were doing in the 80s that made it that was easier than it is now. There's no way anybody's going to be going back and forth at this point, right?
Yeah.
But my dad just saw opportunity here. He got the taste of Santa Rosa. That's where he was coming to, very close to here where we live in Richmond. And he at one point just said, you know what? I can't raise my kids in Mexico. There's no opportunity. There's a lot of crime. I want them to be safe. Again, glamorizing the US as a safe and, the economic opportunity.
Right.
And so my mom was scared. She said, okay, we'll do that, but I'm not taking them across the border, in an unsafe way. So, I was an unauthorized child in the US for a lot of my younger years because we came on a visa. We came on a visa, and now I learned from my family. Hopefully there's nobody listening that's going to call me out on this because now I'm a citizen, but with the way things are now under this administration, but, my dad did so many things to get us a visa, and we legally didn't weren't really supposed to get that visa because I think my dad said he was a doctor. Like my dad was not a doctor, and so we got a visa and we overstayed it. And that was the only way my mom was willing to come is on an airplane safely. And if it hadn't been for that opportunity that happened and that lie that got us here, we wouldn't have done it because my mom refused to have us cross the border any other way.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously now, but even then it's dangerous, right?
It's
The things that
dangerous.
it's dangerous, the things that you have to do. If you have to get as and you hear the stories now, like when people hire coyotes and then they get back and then they hold them for more money and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really crazy. So I could
Yeah. Yeah.
understand your mom's apprehension in regards to
Yeah.
doing that and why um
Yeah. Yeah,
growing
and
up
my dad
like
my dad had gone back and forth and he was in dangerous situations. So he knew that experience of crossing as I guess like a 15, 16-year-old was his first time when he crossed over. He knew the danger, right? And he was like, I'm not bringing babies over the border either. So they did what they had to do, and I'm grateful for that because we wouldn't be here otherwise, for sure.
yeah. Well, I'm
And we
glad
would
you're
have and we
here.
would have been in poverty. Yeah, and that's the thing is like, my mom has a third grade education. My dad barely finished like middle school, the equivalent of middle school, and it wasn't because he didn't want to go, it was because they didn't have money, in Mexico. You got to pay to go to school. Even in your, elementary, middle school, high school years, you had to pay for uniform. There was just not, that's just the way it was. And, being in a family that didn't have a lot of money, very poor. My dad tells me this story. He said, I was given money and I had to choose between walking 45 minutes to school, or taking the bus, or not eating because I could only eat or take the bus. I couldn't do both. So he would have to, go days where he decided I can't walk that far, so I'm not going to eat. I'm going to take the bus. Isn't that sad?
That is so sad. And you know what is even sadder? I mean, not sadder. You know, to this day, we have people in the US that have to make that
Yeah,
decision. And there's still people
100%.
in Mexico that have to make that decision. There's people
Right.
all over the world that have to make that decision. And that is not a decision a child should have to make.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. So he tells me that story and it gives me chills now because the sacrifices and all of that comes up. And just to think my dad as a little boy that had to make that choice, when, like you said, you should not have to make that choice between food and transportation to school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. What made them choose the Bay Area to move to?
Well, we had family here, not a lot, but we had one family member that was helping us. And so we ended up staying with him in Oakland. So we actually came to Oakland first. Yeah. Yeah. So it was just
Man.
family. It was family. And
Yeah.
then we became, we just have stayed in the Bay Area. The furthest we've gone out is Modesto, which is more Central Valley in California. That was
My
it. And then
husband
we
grew
came
up in
back.
Fresno. Yeah,
Okay.
central, like yeah, he grew up in Fresno in the Fresno area and stuff. So people say certain things and I've heard him say, oh, this
Yeah.
area or that area, but we're
Yeah.
actually yeah, it's gonna be it's crazy the circumstances that people are in that make them
Yeah.
so I don't know if I want to say desperate because some people are very desperate, but some people are just truly looking for something more and because they know that because they want to give more to their kids. Growing up, is
Right.
this something that your family talked about? Is this like in regards to because I always feel especially immigrant parents put a lot of pressure on their kids because they're like, we moved here so you could have a better life.
Hmm.
What was that type of relationship in regards to being technically an immigrant,
Right.
but your parents definitely immigrants in regards to providing for you and their expectations that they set, for you and your siblings in regards to
Yeah.
growing up here.
Yeah. So I don't have specific memories where the excuse me, the narrative of, oh, well, we made the sacrifice. Like, it wasn't in my ear like that, but somehow I knew that I had to try very hard. I had to go to college, and it wasn't like every day they were telling me. But every once in a while, there was that narrative of their sacrifice, and it was enough for me to make sure that I made something of myself, right? That I made them proud. That I think one of the things that I've carried for a long time is like paying their debt, right? Their sacrifice and being something for them. And, I feel a little teary-eyed thinking about this, but my dad has told me recently, there is nothing else you could do to make me more proud of you, right? And I'm like, but I have to do it. There is nothing else you need to do. And it's a message, Jessica, it's a message we didn't get when we were growing up, though. So the unspoken rule is that you better why not an A? Why a B? Why not try harder? Why not be better? But that was their way of motivating us, and now he realizes I that's not what I should have said because I realized what you received. And so now he tries to reverse that as an adult and just tell me like, I love you just for who you are, and it's one of the most meaningful things a child can hear is that like it doesn't matter what you do, what grades you get, what sports you play, what you become, like I love you just the way you are. And I think that's such an important message to give our children as they like from birth, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Adriana, I hear you when you say that because even as an adult, right? I the things that would mean the most to me is if my dad, like I felt like my mom would tell me, right?
Hmm.
Like, oh, Mija,
Hmm.
you're doing well. Oh, Mija, this, oh, I'm proud of you, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't
Hmm.
really hear that a lot from my dad. And I'm second gen.
Mm.
But when my dad would actually say he was proud of me, I would burst into tears
Hmm. Hmm.
because those words, and I know a lot has to do with how they grew up, right? In
Right.
regards to my mom is the youngest of 10, my dad's the middle of 12.
Oh, wow.
So
Big
my
fan.
mom got a lot more love, attention than that being because she was the youngest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody spoiled her, but she still there. My grandma was still not a super affectionate woman towards my
Hmm.
mom. To
Right.
me and to the grandkids, totally different, right? But
Right.
with her kids, it wasn't. And um, so my mom, she once told me she wanted to be the opposite. She wanted us to shower us with telling us she
Mm.
loves us and hugs and kisses and everything because she didn't get a lot of that from my grandma. And then
Hmm.
my dad had a very rocky childhood and mostly like his grandparents raised him pretty
Right.
much. And he is very like now over the last 15 years, oh my gosh, like the emotions he shows now versus
Yeah.
but
Isn't
the
that interesting?
it's yes, but growing
Yes.
up he didn't, right?
Yeah.
And he was very stoic and very whatever. So
Yeah.
you never knew exactly what he was thinking. Now you know.
Mm.
And if he's proud of you,
Yeah.
he says it, he'll cry. Like he's very emotional now. And when he
Oh.
read Toast at my wedding and was crying, I was like,
Oh, so beautiful. Reminds me of
yeah.
my father. Yes. My partner goes, Your dad's so emotional. And I'm like, yeah, this is like something in the last 10, 15 years. And he's like, Really? I can't imagine him not being this emotional. And I said, No, He was pretty like, just like more stoic, more serious. He was very funny, actually. Like he is very funny. I get my humor from
Yeah.
him. But when it came to that like that emotional side to like tear up, to all those things, like we didn't see that very often. Pero sabes qué? I think about it now, and this is all about that intergenerational trauma, right? Like the unhealed parts of our parents, our grandparents that gets passed on to us, right? But I find that I have a lot of compassion for my dad, even though for a long time I feel like there was resentment that was unspoken. I have a lot of compassion for him because, he didn't know
Your
what he didn't
resentment
know.
towards him?
Yeah, just in general, resentment, like not even towards him, but for the lack of things that I needed that I didn't get, but not because
Gotcha.
he was withholding it, but because he was in survival. I mean,
Yeah.
they're immigrants, like by true, definition, and they were like, we need a house, we need security, we came for a reason. My dad worked long hours and all of this. So as an adult, when I went to therapy, one really important question that my therapist asked me one time, and it made me cry immediately, was like, how did you know you were loved? Right? And I was like, oh, like immediately, I was like, oh my goodness. And so I was like, I don't know, but I know I was. Like, it was interesting. I couldn't name it. But then as I was, processing, I was like, well, actually, there was a lot of love. There was a lot of love, but it wasn't in the ways that, like, for example, I show my daughter love or I say that I love her, right? But it took me a while to really, like, dissect all of that and realize that there was a lot of love, but there was also a lot of things missing, and that's okay. Holding the duality of I had love, but it's okay to also say, and I was missing something. Because one of the things that happens, I think, in our culture is that this betrayal, like, no puedo decir nada malo de mi familia, I can't say
Yeah.
anything bad about my family, like they did their best they could. And like that is true, but it denies that child experience of you wanting to have had more cuddles, like words of affirmation, them showing up to your soccer game, all those things, right, that you see other kids have. Now as an adult, you go, that's okay, I didn't need it. But when you think of that inner child, you're like, actually, that would have been really nice and, nourishing to have had my parent show up in these ways. But when they're in survival, like it's hard, right? You can't do it all.
Yeah. No, you know what's so crazy is as a second gen, and with my mom being first gen, both my parents being first gen, and also having very vast different experiences in regards to growing
Mm.
up, and my mom having that, like, I want to be different than my mom and show my kids a lot of
Mm.
love and telling them, you know, there's a lot of things as the eldest that I is very similar across the board, right? Doesn't like
Right,
being the eldest daughter in a Latino family, like very I definitely hold that universal experience in regards to some of the things that were expected of us.
right,
But at the
right.
same and also at the same time, um when you're saying certain things, I'm like, oh my gosh, my mom really was very different because, like, when my dad would go to work or like
Mhm.
in the mornings before I would get ready for school, I would climb in bed with my mom and
Mm.
watch like old, my like Father Knows Best, or like watch these really old TV
Yeah,
shows with her, um, or old movies with her,
yeah,
stuff like that, that she would watch, and that was like my time with her, even if my sisters were still sleeping.
right.
And my mom is very touchy feely, I'm very touchy feely, my husband is very touchy feely,
Okay, okay.
because so I think I've realized as I got older, like, physical touch is definitely a love language of mine,
Hmm.
like to give and receive, and thankfully my husband is very similar in that.
That's good.
But yeah, oh my gosh, yes, because
Yes. You don't have to
what
fight for it.
no, he will, like, I'll be driving and he'll just, or I'll be sitting on the couch and he'll just rub his hand up
Mm.
and down my arm, or,
Yeah.
whatever. But you're right in all of these things. Like, I feel yeah, I definitely knew there was I always knew my dad loved me, and
Hmm.
I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but if maybe I have, but my dad is also not my biological dad.
Hmm.
Um, but he is my dad in every way, shape, and form. They met when I was 3. Like they got
Mm,
married right before I turned 4. He is my
mm,
dad, and
right.
like he may
Yeah,
not be my biological father, but he is my father in every way that counts. And
absolutely.
so I did have this insecurity growing up, and he never gave me a reason why, but I did have this insecurity of growing up. I was like I like self-diagnosed, like
Yeah.
I feel like we all do, right?
Yes.
Because part of me was like, had this trauma, even though I didn't know my biological dad. I met him once maybe in my life, but
Right.
knowing that he didn't want to have anything to do with me, but now I know it was like a really good thing, right? And
Right.
having my dad step up and
Right.
love me no less than my sisters,
Right.
and
Right.
which I do not call my half sisters. They're my sisters, right?
There's
They're
your
not my half
sisters.
sisters, they are my sisters. And um there was still always this thing in the back of my mind, like, what if he walks away too? Is he gonna ever treat, wait, did
Mm,
he do this like
mm.
because I'm not his, but like they were very few and far between, but they were there.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy how we, you know, later in life, I was like, well, maybe this is why I have relational problems, because my dad is an amazing man, but maybe I put it in my head way back when that this man walked away. So who cares or what,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting of what
Yeah.
we kind of diagnose based on our childhood, and
Right.
those things that leave scars.
100%. And I think this is where there's the body, you can't separate the mind from the body, right? Because on an intellectual level, you're probably like, I have a dad. He was there for me in every meaningful way I could imagine. But at the same time, there was still like a body narrative of that separation from your bio dad, right? And a story you made of it here and there would creep in or whatnot. But I think that goes to show that we can't separate our bodies and what it remembers to what we know to be true, right? So I think that's what's interesting about what we know to be true, right? Our experience in our minds and like what happens, and then what our bodies experience. Because as a child, like the idea of being separated, even if it's bio dad or you have the story that someone left, like we create stories in our bodies around that, right? And then of course later you're seeking relationships and there's challenges, right? Because there's a little part of an unhealed like inner child that's has that. And so I think that's really interesting because my daughter actually, and I won't speak too much of her story because it's her story to tell, but her dad and I separated when she was 2 or 3. She's had a lot of love in her life. We've had some really good male figures in her life, like my brother, my dad, and now my partner. But there's still a pain that, there's still a gap there of not having her father. And so sometimes in her relationship, she has this fear that her friends are going to leave her or that, people are going to leave her. And her dad left, and I should say, not but her dad left, right? Decided to be not part of her life as much. And yet there's still that void and that the way we show up in the world because of that one thing that happened that we didn't have control over, right? So it's very interesting how our body interprets our life stories and the things that happen, even with all the
Yeah.
love, even with all the things that are good in our lives, right? Like it's confusing sometimes because you don't know why you just showed up that way when everything seems fine.
Yeah, no, yeah, it can hit you in the most odd moments as well.
Mhm.
You don't think that it's a thing, and then all of a sudden something happens, and you're like, and
What just
sometimes we
happened?
don't even understand why it happened. When,
Yeah.
how, like, as you were growing up, I love how we're weaving like
Yeah.
current things with how you grew up and everything. But
Yeah.
as you grew up and you obviously you don't think of these things, right? When you're little,
Mhm.
you don't think of this is how I must process, or this is da da
Of
da. And
course.
again, like we were saying, we don't talk about mental health, especially. I think it's so much more of a conversation now versus like our times growing up. It's just,
Mhm.
sweep it under the rug.
Right.
Just,
Right.
we don't talk about it. Everybody knows, but nobody talks about it. Things like
Right.
that. Things that are very cultural within Black and Brown communities.
Right.
What are the things that when was the first time you remember thinking, something isn't right, or how, like, I can't talk to my parents about this. I don't know who to talk to. Because I think we all have that moment. And I think
Right.
sometimes those moments lead us to where we are now. So, do you remember when you started thinking, like, I can't tell my parents this? They're going to think I'm crazy, or I can't, or maybe you tried to tell them something and they're like, oh, it's okay. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think it was the absence of conversation around our mental health. And for me, I was more scared of my dad than I anything, right? And so I never felt like I could ask for things that I didn't think he would understand. Again, I felt really loved. All that stuff happened, right? Where we had family gatherings, he encouraged me in school. He actually let me do whatever I want when it came to my choices like playing sports. He never said, "Oh, sports are for women or for men." He never made me feel like I couldn't be what I wanted to be, but I was always scared of my dad because I didn't want to let him down. And now I contribute that to a little bit of why, I experience a lot of shame, and that's something that I'm vulnerable about and I'm open about, and that's probably why I attract a lot of clients that experience that. I'm healing. I don't think I'm at an end point, but I think I was always scared to do the wrong thing. So with my family, I remember one time, and this is something again we laugh about now, but I got really drunk in my junior year of high school, and I came home drunk, pretending like I wasn't drunk.
Sophomore.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. See? And I came home pretending like I was sober. I don't know how that worked, right? But my dad after that like really realized that something was happening, right? Where maybe I was dealing with problems or something. And I remember after that, I brought home a permission slip for mental like therapy services from school, and I just gave it to him and I said, I think I need this, I think I'm struggling. And we didn't have a conversation about it, but he signed it. He signed it, but no conversation. Just he signed it. I don't even know if he'd remember to this day that I was in therapy for like 3 weeks. And that was the moment, that was my first experience with therapy. After that moment of drinking, coming home, and having a lot of chaos happen after that, I realized how, we don't talk about it. But again, my dad never stopped me from doing things. So I think he was just like, okay, I mean, we won't talk about it, pero tienes mi permiso, right? Like you got my permission, go do the thing. But it wasn't until I hit like my mid 20s that I really realized what my childhood experience was, and that was after my daughter's dad left. I feel like all the stuff came surfaced in that. And I think that's why I also got in relationship and had a child very young. I was seeking the love that I didn't get, or that I didn't feel I was getting. I shouldn't say that I didn't get, but I wasn't feeling it. And so there was this thing of chasing it in someone else. And then when that fell apart, I think all that stuff surfaced of not feeling lovable, not being good enough. And it rocked my world, especially as a young mom with a baby. And then, of course, in grad school, it was a tough time. And I'm open about this, but I was suicidal. I was depressed. I didn't know if I was going to make it. My daughter was my North Star. I was like, no, I have to make it. I love my life. I love my daughter. But at the same time, I was deeply depressed and struggling.
Wine break. Time to refill that glass and come back for more wine and chisme. Hola, Wine and Chisme familia. We've got some exciting news to share. The Wine and Chisme now has a voicemail line. That's right, you can literally call us, leave your thoughts, questions, or even suggest topics you want us to dive into on future episodes. Whether you want to share how an episode resonated with you, or ask about previous wines we've featured, or even tell us about your own chisme, we want to hear your voice. Porque este podcast has always been about connection, and now we can make that connection even more real. So grab your phone and call us at 858-304-0266. Leave us a message, tell us your name, where you're calling from, and whatever's on your heart. Who knows? Your voice might be featured on an upcoming episode. Because at the end of the day, Wine and Chisme is about all of us coming together, sharing our stories, and celebrating our community. Now, be a part of the podcast in a whole new way. Again, that number is 858-304-0266. We want to hear from you. Yeah. Oh my girl. I see a lot of things reflected in things that I've gone through. Um, and it's so interesting because I know that probably so many of us have gone through that and felt like, what are we doing? What am because I'm the same way, and I know so many of my friends have been the same way in regards to we don't want to disappoint our parents. We
Yes.
don't want to disappoint and honestly, I love my extended family, but I don't need their approval. And
Hmm.
I don't need my parents' approval, but I do want my parents' approval. I guess
Hmm.
there's a difference, right? Like,
Hmm.
can I survive if they don't approve of something that I do? Yes, absolutely. But do I want them to approve of what I'm doing? Absolutely. I want them to be
Hmm.
proud of me.
Right.
And I think, how do we like as people, as especially as Latinas, is in regards to who you particularly focus or help, a lot of Latinas come to you, how do we reconcile that as being, especially, we're grown, we're adults, we have families, we have, we're married, whatever, but then we're trying to reconcile this love that we didn't feel like we got, or this, we want the approval, or our parents to be proud of us. How do we reconcile that to
Hmm.
be able to move forward?
Yeah. Well, I, with all the women I've been working with, it is hard. It's a stuck place. They're stuck in a time that maybe is much younger than their actual age. And have found that inner child work really helps. Like parenting your own child to repair and heal will help you get to that place where you're like, I want that approval. I don't need it to survive. Because the thing is, as children, we do feel like we will die if we get rejected by our caregivers, right? So tell me who you want me to be, and I will be that because I need to survive and connect with you, right? As adults, we don't need that because we won't die, right? We're adults. But the problem is we carry that wounded inner child and it feels like we're gonna die. So, when I was in relationship with my daughter's dad and he left, it was my inner child that got into the suffering, right? I felt like I was gonna die. Like I actually felt like I was gonna die. I felt so depressed. I felt like I couldn't live without him. But the reality is that I could, but that fear or that feeling of rejection was so unbearable for me. So if my inner child heals and knows that you are safe, you are an adult, you are okay, you have love, and it really like believes that and feels that, then you can move on. You can heal that part of you, right? Because that's the work. It's going to be inner child work to be able to get there. Yeah.
Now, I think sometimes when we talk about inner child work, I think people, I don't know if everybody exactly knows what that is. So can you explain like what inner child work is? Because I feel like some people have done it because they've gone through therapy. Sometimes people are like, well, I hear it all the time, but I don't know exactly what that means. So can you explain to people like that may not really know? I feel like a lot of people know what it is, but maybe there's some people, and you know what? There might be people who say they know, but are embarrassed to say that they don't really know when they're in groups. So can you share with us?
Right. Yeah, of course. Well, it's interesting because I, for a long time, was very separated from my inner child, even as a professional. I mean, I'll be it's embarrassing. Maybe it's not. I mean, it is what it is. But I didn't start therapy until after I got my social work degree and I was working towards my hours to be a therapist, right? And then a lot of stuff came up, and I was like, I can't be there for others unless I do my work. But the inner child work is really having a relationship with that young part of you, like being able to pull up a picture and look at that young child and have compassion for that child and relate with that child and love that child and kind of go back to those times where it's frozen that child's frozen in a time of fear or trauma and be able to help that child, right? Oftentimes the trauma that happens is usually because nobody was there, right? It's not that it's not just because of this, but sometimes trauma happens and you'll have one child going through the same situation that doesn't have, an impact, a negative impact in their life, and the other child will. And that's usually you ask, and it's because no one was there. No one witnessed them. No one explained to them what happened. No one validated them. No one, or the opposite, they got shamed. It was their fault. Like that's the opposite of nothing happening, nobody telling them that it was okay, it was not their fault. So that child is growing up in a world thinking that the world's not safe or that people don't love them or that, whatever narrative or whatever meaning making that child made because of that incident, it gets carried on into adulthood and unfortunately goes into our relationships and into our parenting and everything. It spills over. That's where we tend to then decide, oh, I have to go to therapy because my life is falling apart and I'm the common denominator here. You
right?
know?
That's like the worst thing to realize.
It's
Wait, all these things have happened.
me.
What's the common? Oh,
Yeah, I
crap.
mean, I kept going through relationship. I mean, I was looking. I wanted love. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to have someone accept me, but the work was like me. I was the work. I had to come home to me. I had to look at baby me, child me, and honestly, it was really triggering to see pictures of my younger self. So it took me a while to be able to face that little girl and not shame her or not make her wrong.
I think that it's so important. I think I probably need to do that more often to look at pictures of me when I was younger and remember how I was feeling or try to remember how I was feeling in those moments and say, you know, it's okay. I do remember as an adult and I was in my early 30s of the first major breakup I had had with this guy. I was in a relationship for 3 years.
Hmm.
And the first, like when I fully let go of that relationship, and when I told him, look, well, when I broke up with him, I'm like, does breaking up with you hurt? Yeah. But will I die? No, I'll be okay. And if he was in front of me, he would have been the mind blown emoji, I'm sure. But that was the first time I think I was like maybe 31 that I think I really took hold, and I was like, and I understood that because it was one of those things, and I feel like we go through this a lot, whether it's friendships, family, whatever, but it was one of those things where I was like, well, I want you to fight for me, but
Hmm.
and you're not fighting for me, but wait, I don't, but I wasn't ready to let it go. But why do I want to be with somebody who wouldn't fight for it? It was constantly these
Hmm.
two things struggling with each other. And I feel like for so many of us, that's what continues to happen. We were talking before we hit record about me being the
Hmm.
oldest of three, you're
Hmm.
the middle of three, and the only girl bookended between two boys,
Yep.
and how all of those relationships, like you were saying, like, how all of those relationships are very different. My
Hmm.
relationship with my parents is very different than what the relationship my sisters have with my parents.
Yes.
um and how much that affects us.
Hmm.
How, like when you're talking to people and people are coming to you, how do you see that sibling relationship feeding into how they are relating to other people as well? Or are you seeing mostly a sibling like like relationship, or more of what they did or did not receive from parents?
Mm. Well, I do believe that we get assigned roles, right? Whether we're the middle, younger, older, or we assign ourselves the roles, but usually it's because the roles have been assigned to us, right? And not because someone says, okay, you're going to be parent number three and you're going to be, no one's saying that,
You're
but
the
it's by
built-in
the
babysitter, you're
yeah,
this,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
that,
It,
like,
it's
yeah.
it's by the things that the parents do, and that's because, I think there's a cultural thing too. The eldest, usually has more responsibility. If you're the eldest daughter versus the eldest son, there's a little difference there too, right?
Yeah,
And my mom actually had
I was the eldest daughter and son.
oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
Because
And
there
so
was no boys, and we didn't there was no boys, so
yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
had
my
to
brother
do the
became
things.
the third parent. He became the third parent and he was only 2 years older, but he's always been the third parent. And it's interesting because, as you said, like, how is it that that dynamic goes into the world, as they go and relate to others? And those things transfer over, right? Like the responsible one, the one that ha has it all together, like that gets carried into the world outside of that dynamic. So it's really interesting because for me as a middle child, I felt like I was holding things quietly. Um, my older brother was the third parent, and then my little brother kind of got to do whatever he wanted to do. Like my parents didn't have a lot of oversight over him as much. It was like my older brother got the most responsibility, but then as the only girl, I was monitored all the time too because my dad didn't want anything to happen to me. He was very protective and all of that. But at the same time, I sometimes would yell at my mom, be like, "You love my brother more than you love me," right? And it's interesting now that I think of it, I was like, wow, I'm remembering that. Like I actually told them I didn't feel loved. Right? Like I actually told them, I yelled at them, and what they heard was, "Oh, es enojona, es malcriada, or whatever," right? Like she's acting out. But
Yeah.
if you heard my words, it was like, "No, I don't feel the love that you get, that he gets," right? And so I felt very lost. I felt very average. I felt very unseen. And to that point, now as an adult, I am terrified of being seen still, even though that is what I wanted the most as a child. Quiero que me veas. I want the attention. I want all the attention. And now as an adult, I'm terrified of attention. So it's really interesting how that works and that I'm here on this podcast being seen. But, that's part of the healing too, is showing up and saying, you know what, I am going to make those steps to be seen. I deserve to be seen. If I mess up, I mess up, and that's okay. But I'm a recovering perfectionist. So it doesn't make it easy, but I think it's worth it, especially after my cancer diagnosis. I was like, you know what, I just have to show up. There's not enough time in the world. We don't have, our life isn't guaranteed. One day to the next, you can be here or you cannot be here. And so that was really life-changing for me. And what really made me show up differently, not just for myself, but for people around me and how I related.
What's really interesting as you're saying that is, as the oldest, I, you know, and I do have a big personality. I am very aware of that, but it took me a long time to even put my face on the cover art for the podcast.
Oh, wow.
But I like to control everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
anytime I'm like, I want to know everything. I need to know everything. I need to know how things are going to progress. I need to
Mm-hmm.
know what my role is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't just, and I'm good at being thrown into something because I've, I always have joked that my life's motto is I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And, as the oldest, and my grandpa, after my grandma died, my grandpa moved in with us.
Mm-hmm.
But he really babysitting? No. It was me babysitting my two sisters and my grandpa.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right? It wasn't my grandpa. There was an
Yeah.
adult
There
there,
was an
yes.
adult. There was chronologically there wasn't like
Yeah.
age-wise, there was an adult in the room. Yes.
Yes, exactly. But when my parents would go, they would go to Vegas for the weekend and
Mhm.
and I'm not saying my parents are awesome. I love my parents. I'm
Yeah.
not
This
trying
is
to
not a
throw them.
diss to the parents. This is
This
not
is
a diss to the
I'm not,
grandparents.
yeah, I'm not throwing them under the bus or anything. But yeah, they would go have their weekends and not every weekend. Also, this is not like every weekend, like,
You're like disclosure.
yes, I don't want somebody like, trying to find my sisters or my parents or write something that's not the case. Like, let's
Yeah.
say once a quarter they would go to
Right.
Vegas or something like
Sure.
that. We live in San Diego, super close, an
Yeah,
hour
they
flight.
deserve it. They
They
deserve
deserve
it.
it.
Yeah.
And after my grandma died, my grandpa moved in with us.
Yeah.
But when they would go, I would be the one, Grandpa, you need to make like you know, you need to make sure you eat. Like I was cooking for them. Grandpa, did you take a shower? You need to take a shower. Like I was like the caregiver of my grandpa
Hmm.
and my sisters when they were gone.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely fed into who I am
Your personality
today.
now.
Yeah, I've always, even amongst my friends, although I was one of the youngest because my birthday's in November,
Hmm.
I was the mama hen for
Mm.
everybody.
Hmm.
Even though I chronologically I was the youngest one.
Hmm.
Even in my marriage, I am the one who takes charge of everything. I'm the one who pays all the bills. I'm the one who balances our budget. I'm the one who makes sure. And
Hmm.
my husband is an only child, right?
Oh, yeah.
He has siblings that he didn't grow up. He does have siblings, but he
Yeah.
didn't grow up in the same household as them.
Mm.
So that's also an interesting dynamic sometimes
Very
because
much.
yeah, like I'm the person who you need to clean up after yourself. Well, and then I see his socks on the by the couch or he didn't close the cupboard and I'm like,
Yes.
You're an
Yes.
adult. Come on,
You could
dude.
do
Really?
this.
Actually, I told him about this morning. He said there was a thread online and they were like, what is a wholesome thing that you like can't stand that your partner does? And I'm like, I can't stand when he opens the cupboard, doesn't take something out, and leaves the cupboard open. Like,
That is so real. I don't know if that's a dude thing because my
or,
partner does that too, and I'm like, what?
yeah,
It's just a one sweep, just one
yeah.
sweep with your hand.
And so I did tell him that this morning. I was like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
posted that. But then also the first thing he does is go into the room and when he takes off his shoes, why are you coming out here and taking your socks out here? Why are you saying I don't want your socks in the living room? They're in the head, throw them in
Yes,
the
it
hamper. Come
comes
on,
out.
man.
Yes, yes. Well, as the only child, was he taken care of a lot? Just like being the only child and like one shot taking care of them? Because I have my daughter's an only child. And I feel like I do everything for her, even though I know I shouldn't because I'm not helping her, but I want to do everything for her.
I I think a lot was done for him. I don't
Hmm.
know. I think also um there's certain things that he says, and I don't want to speak for him because it's his
Yeah.
experience, not mine, but I only go by what he tells me.
Yes, yes.
And I think that sometimes he likes to get like he definitely did not he didn't grow up in poverty, but they weren't like well off or anything, him and
Yeah,
his mom. And that changed a lot.
yeah,
But I think that I don't know. I don't know. I think his mom probably did do I would imagine she worked,
yeah,
but and
yeah,
he played sports, but I think that she probably did as much as she could for him,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But I will say he's not he can cook, he can clean,
That's all
he
you need. That's all
yeah,
you
like
need. You
he's
know he
not
can do
somebody
it.
who yeah, and his and so he's not like somebody who's like, oh, you do everything,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
type of
yeah,
like
yeah,
if clothes are overflowing and I'm like, can you just sometimes he'll throw washing without me even asking. He's like, oh man, we gotta wash some clothes.
yeah.
Maybe I haven't gotten to him yet because I've been doing other things. He'll like
That's
that's
good.
not an
That's good.
issue. Yeah.
Yes, that's a partnership. No, it's really interesting the dynamics. Yeah, my partner's definitely someone that held a lot of responsibility in his family, and I'm someone that needs a lot of control in my family. Like everything, like and he it's interesting because he lets it go a lot, but then sometimes I
Wasn't
overdo
that
it.
hard? Was that
Yes.
hard? That was so hard for me because
Yes.
he was
I mean,
married
you've
before
been
as well.
independent for quite a minute. Like you've been pretty, if I followed your story correctly,
Yes.
I know a little bit of your story, right? And so I think that is hard. That is hard because I'm like, I'm an independent woman. And of course, I'm like, I also need to be cared for.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is like he jokes with me and goes, I was single for 347 years. Because I'm be like, certain things that I'm like, you know what? I did take care of myself
Yes.
before you came into my life.
Yes. Yes.
But it's true. Like I am independent, but I also need to be cared for. And we're
Yes.
still trying, I think for the most part, we're finding that. Like I have a step stool, so if I need to get to certain things, I don't always want to bring out the step stool. Can you get that for me, please?
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love where you've gotten to that place where you're like, that's okay. I can do it, but I choose not to.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. I can do it.
I can do it. If you were in here, oh, I would get there. I would so get there, right? I would get
Yes.
on 10 stools to get there. Yeah. No, it's really
Oh, I saw
interesting.
this one. I don't know if it was a TikTok or an Instagram reel or something where it was like my wife when I'm not home and she's moving everything by
Yes. Oh,
herself.
I've seen that trend.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then my wife when I'm home. Can you get that? Like I
Yeah.
can't do
Yes.
that points into
Yes.
stuff. That's
I'm actually the one that's like pulling hard, trying to reach something. My partner's taller than me for sure. And he'll be like, "Do you need help?" And I'm like, "No, I am almost there." I'm
oh, I'll
almost
grab the
there.
tongs if it's just
Yeah.
close enough. I'll grab the
Yes.
tongs.
I have a little grabber myself and he's just like, "Wow, you really trying to be so independent." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, just in case. You never
Yeah.
know."
Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely I feel like the other, you know, but that's also something that my mom kind of really beat into me. Not
Yeah.
literally,
No, I
okay?
know what you mean. Yeah,
She
basically
really beat
said you
into.
have to do what you got to do to take care of yourself. My dad, that
Yeah.
was a message for sure. My dad was always like, you don't want to rely on someone. So it was like, okay, you're right. I don't want to. And he did it because he wanted to make sure I would be okay regardless of what happened with my future, whether I was partnered or not, even though I know he's always wanted me to have a partner because I think it gives him a sense of like security that when he's not around, I'll be taken care of. And I think that's that Latino dad thing.
Oh yeah. Well, oh, for sure. Well, when my husband, I mean, even though I was in my 40s, I still had told my husband like if you ever decide that you were good because we had decided we weren't going to get married, and when he decided
Mm,
he wanted to ask me, I had said if you ever decide this, you know, then you need to get my parents' blessing. And so when
mm.
he got my dad's blessing, my dad's response to my husband was, "You know what you're getting into, right?"
Oh my gosh,
And
stop.
apparently he told that to all of the husbands
Stop.
because yeah, he's like, "You know what you're
That's
getting into, right?"
no, that's what my parents told my daughter's dad when we were going to move in. He's like, ya sabes lo que va a pasar, right? They basically like, you know how she is, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, what? Tell me how you really feel.
When my husband told me that, I was like, he said, "What?"
Yes, yes. No, they've definitely warned my partner and they were like, are you sure you're going to marry her? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Well,
And
it is
what's
what it is. But
funny is, yeah, what's funny is that we were talking about it over the weekend, and my dad's like, "Yeah, because we did raise you guys. Like, we didn't ever tell
yeah,
you couldn't
yeah,
couldn't do anything. If you wanted to do something, we
right,
would try and make it happen for you as much as we could.
right,
But we did raise you guys to think, and my dad was very honest. He's like, we did raise you guys to think for yourselves. And
right.
yeah, you guys think for your and my dad's like,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
and you ran with
yeah,
it. You,
yeah,
you definitely
yeah,
think for yourselves.
yeah.
So he just needed to be aware, where that you're strong and he needs to
Yeah.
know that. And I was like,
Yeah, it's interesting. My dad definitely taught me to take care of myself and like make sure I didn't need anything from anyone. At the same time, he won't teach me to change the oil because he says he'll do it. Right?
okay, my dad doesn't do that, but I will say this. There's certain things I'm like, okay, I can learn how to do this or I can pay somebody head to do it.
Yeah,
And when I got to the point where I was like, why am I doing that? I'm gonna pay.
yeah.
No, I'm gonna pay somebody to do that.
Right, right, 100%. Yeah, no, my dad, and I think it's his love language is acts of service. So I think not having that, like if I do something for myself that he would like to do for me, he wants to do it because he's also retired now. And like I said, my dad's on a whole journey of like repairing, the moments or the relationship of what he knows. He's very reflective. He knows he's like, I wish I was the parent that I am now and the grandparent that I am now, I wish I could have been that for you. And so it's so beautiful to hear that. I mean, I think to me that's I don't need more than that. I just it's very, very helpful to know and to experience this new dad that's very healing for me, this new mom. My mom is the same way, she didn't have
Yeah.
affectionate parents because her parents passed away when she was very young. So she didn't learn how to show love. And I always thought, well, it's because no me quiere. But, now I think of it, it's like, no, it's because she didn't know. This is that intergenerational trauma. They didn't learn how to do that. They did it differently. My mom cocina. Her cooking is her love language, right? And so if I don't have food, she's like, I'll send you something. I'll send you caldo, right? Like it is that. Although
Oh,
now she's
every
coming
time I'm at
around.
my parents' mom's like, Mija, we have this in the freezer.
Yeah,
Why don't you take like she
yeah,
and in the same when we go to my mother-in-law's house, right? Like
yeah,
both
yeah.
of anytime we go to our family's house, they're like, oh, here,
Yes.
take this, take this, take this.
Yeah, if my mom knows we're coming over, we'll tell her, don't make anything. We're fine. Don't worry about it. And she's like, okay, I won't. Of course, she makes all this food. She goes, oh, we were gonna, yeah, we were just cooking. And I was like, you were just cooking for 10? And she doesn't want to say it, but I'm like, yeah, I know this is love. And so I do dearly love my parents. They're amazing.
So when you're talking to people in regards to, are you finding like similar? Because I know everybody's different, every family's different, the way people respond are different. But have you found like maybe a similar thread amongst what you're finding within this like intergenerational trauma within the Latino community?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it. A lot of people that I work with, Latinas especially, and I tend to work with actually the eldest daughters of the family, even though I'm a middle child, right? But a lot of them just come with a lot of sense of responsibility, not wanting to, fuck up, for lack of a better word, but trying to be still that golden child for their family. And but while also wanting to fulfill their own dreams, right? And that's where they're struggling because on the one hand, if they are that person that they need to be for their family, that role and like not break that mold, do they give up what they want, right? Like what if they don't want children? I have, clients that don't want children. And yeah, I see your face, but yeah, I have clients that are just like, I don't want children because I grew up taking care of everybody and I just want to be quote unquote selfish. And like, I can't reconcile that with my family because they expect me to have marriage and children. And some of them don't want to be married. And, there's all these experiences. So I don't know that there's a common thread, but I think what it is there's a lot of conflict, a lot of inner conflict between what they want and what's expected. And that's a lot of what I see and a lot of the stress that I see coming in with Latinas that are seeking, especially like first gens or, immigrants like me who have a first gen experience, just really trying to do it all, but also fulfill their own desires and whatever that looks like, right? And that's
Yeah.
really hard because to break the expectation is to definitely experience pain and to destabilize the collective, right? The family, what people think you should do. And that's painful. But some of the clients I've worked with, they do it and they go through rocky moments. And at the end of the day, their family comes back, right? But it's hard because you don't know if that will
Yeah.
happen or not.
Well, I think especially when if you decide to do something, whether it's that isn't like, whether it's family wise, right? In regards to, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have kids type of thing, or if it's versus even like career wise,
Hmm.
and doing something that your parents don't understand. Because let's be real, there's so many career options now that weren't options
Right.
when they were growing up. So, for example, when I started the podcast, and my parents don't listen to the podcast, like
Hmm.
the only time they've ever heard the podcast is they came to my event, my live event in LA a
Oh,
few years
awesome.
ago,
Hmm.
and I
For
called them
support.
out. Yeah, they came for support. And my mom was like, Mija, because it was the very first event in LA. I think we had like 50, 60 people there. I mean, it was for a very first event. It was a really great show out. And my
Yeah.
mom is looking around and she's like, Mija, all these people are here for you. And I was
Oh,
like, she was
you're like,
just, yeah, I was like, yeah, mom, they're here for the podcast. They're here for the wine. They're here. And
"Mhm."
she was just so shocked. And then when she realized, like nobody would ever doubt my talking capabilities, right? Nobody
Right.
ever, like,
Yes.
people growing up that I have met, that I've known since elementary school, when they hear like what I'm doing now, they're like not shocked. But after she saw it in person and saw the impact and saw that, now now she'll be like, oh, Mija, I met somebody who should be on your podcast.
Oh,
And
that's so funny,
it's,
right?
she went from completely not understanding it
Yeah.
to, oh, I got people for you. And
Yeah.
it's just really funny how that happens, because when it's conceptual to them,
Right.
it doesn't mean anything. It means like, what do you mean? What are you talking
Yeah.
about? Está loca. What's going on? And
Right.
then when they see it, like, oh,
Right.
wait, okay, maybe you have a point. It's almost like we have to prove ourselves
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
show them, look, this is, yes, you may not understand it, but
Yeah.
this is real and this is what I'm doing for them. And,
Yeah.
and they have to see some sort of success before
Yeah.
they're okay, because before they're
Yeah.
almost okay with it.
Yeah. They want to know that this is right for you, right?
Yeah.
I was one of the podcasters in the pandemic that then became not a podcaster quickly. So I have a podcast on the Spotify's and the iTunes or whatever it is, or podcast Apple. And I remember catching my dad listening to one of my episodes, and I was mortified. I was mortified just because I was like, oh my gosh, we talk about so many things on there. And it was actually a therapist podcast. It was a podcast where we brought our humanity. into the conversation. Like therapists are people too. We all have stuff. And in fact, because we have stuff, we become therapists. Right? And I remember like walking into the garage of my parents and my dad, that's where he spends a lot of his time with his music and all these things. And he was listening to my podcast and I was like, oh my gosh, I better be careful about what I say on there. All of a sudden I got self-conscious, but I also found it to be really endearing because he never told me he was listening to it. He kind of just did it just to, and then like I walked in and realized, oh, my dad, this is again him showing he cares and about what I care about. And I thought that was really endearing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think anybody in my family listened to the podcast. And then
And
my
then you found
cousins were
out
like,
differently.
no. And then my cousins were like, hola, hola, we listen. I was like, oh, you guys listen? And they're like, yeah, of course. I had no idea.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And
Well,
then, yeah, I was like, I literally, I knew my mother-in-law listens sometimes.
yeah.
And then she'll be like, she'll sometimes say, oh, I listened to this. If she really
Oh,
likes something, she'll tell me that she liked it.
oh.
But my parents don't
Yeah. Well, I
listen.
mean, I mean, I think eventually my dad would have like stopped listening, but because it felt so like new to me, I was like, yeah, listen to my podcast. And he's like, eh. And then I caught him and I was like, you do listen to
Ah,
it.
that's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
I
been sweet.
love that. So I know, like you said, as a therapist, you see a therapist.
Yeah.
How like I think most therapists are like that, right? If I'm correct, like most therapists have therapists. So how do you, I'm sure it's very good for you. I'm trying to figure out the question that I want to ask because I feel like it's a very complicated question
Mm.
in regards to are you when you're going through therapy, because when you're as a therapist, I'm sure you hear a lot of really heavy things. You hear a lot of things that obviously you can't speak about because
Hmm.
doctor patient or
Yeah.
patient confidentiality and everything like that. But when you are speaking to your therapist, how much of that are you bringing to your therapist in regards to, because that's a lot to carry. So how do you carry everything that your patients tell you without bringing that into the real world for you?
Right. So I've been in and out of therapy. There have been times in my life where I was doing it like weekly, bi-weekly, pretty consistently. When I went through my diagnosis, I had a therapist. Right now, I'm in search of a new therapist because I do believe that we outgrow our therapist depending on, our healing and our journey, and or we need something else, and our therapist, is not the one, and that's very normal. So the therapist won't be your forever therapist most of the time. But I do think that when I did have the consistent therapy sessions, because I also worked in CPS, I didn't name that, but I used to work in CPS, Child Protection Services. And so I would see a lot. And that was when I needed it the most, when I felt like a lot of like that secondary trauma coming onto me and coming home to my own daughter. And it was just a lot harder. But without bringing obviously just all my clients to therapy, what I find that is that when I'm working with clients, I might get activated because something's coming up for me, right? And so then I take that to my own therapy and say, I want to continue to show up for my clients without judgment, without bias, without, you know, being scared of what they're going to tell me. And all that stuff is something that I knew I had to have my own therapy for because we're still, like I said, we're still human. Someone might bring something in and you're like, oh, that's hitting something something unhealed in me is showing up. And so, in order to be there with unconditional positive regard for my clients, I needed to take care of myself. So that's the way I used my therapy on top of other stuff that was going on in my relationship or, my parenting, things like that. So that's how I found that therapy was helpful and how I would how I would unload some of the things that I was holding from my clients, right?
Wow. I mean, I can only imagine. I can't imagine a therapist not having a therapist with all the things that you guys have to
Yeah.
listen to
Yeah.
and have to hold, because you have to hold space for so much to be able
Yeah.
to truly help your clients. Um, I know that you do. Of course, I was on your website,
Yeah.
and I know you do different types of therapies. You do individual therapy, couples therapy. EMDR therapy groups and workshops. Um, what and is everything that you do online, or do you have an office as well?
Yeah, so I just started I'm expanding from solo to group practice, which is very exciting. And that's where the couples therapy is coming in because I actually don't do couples therapy. I've done some couples therapy work, but it's not my expertise. I do EMDR. So trauma work is my specialty, which I don't know how I landed there, but I
And can you
did.
explain what EMDR is?
Yes, it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And so essentially it's a trauma therapy approach that helps integrate what our mind knows to be true with what's in the body that's still causing the trauma, right? So our bodies get frozen in trauma. Something happens and our bodies go into that stress response, but we move on. We live our lives or we think we've moved on, right? But somehow the body is stuck in that trauma and it shows up in the ways in our relationships or we can't show up to certain things or we're afraid of something or whatever that may be, right? And so with eye movements the body is healing itself, so you're doing bilateral eye movements to help the body reprocess a particular event in your life, right? And through that you go through these different channels in your mind, right? Things get stored either adaptively or maladaptively. And if we have a lot of maladaptive storing that's happening, then we have a lot of probably dysfunction in our lives, right? Because we're triggered, we get mad, we like there's some lot of dysfunction that can happen. We can't be in relationship. All these different symptoms that show up. We're really depressed. We don't know why. So EMDR really helps unblock that and really go. It's almost like therapy on steroids, for lack of a better term, because it's going straight to the source and it could be very intense. And some people say it feels like magic, but it's not. It just feels like you're healing faster because you are doing such intense work with the body and the mind. So I love this form of therapy because it tends to help people that have done talk therapy for a really long time and just can't get any sort of or they've made progress, but they're still stuck. So a lot of people come to EMDR who have already done a ton of work. And so they come and they want to do sort of like big surgery, you know, they're ready to go in and they're doing the surgery and, they tend to find healing um, meaningful and a little bit quicker than the other therapies. It's not like the best and only, but it is right for the right people and people that are getting stuck.
Oh my gosh, you have shared so much about your life, and I love. Thank you so much because, like I said, I think the way we were able to flow between,
Mhm.
you know, what's happening now in in generalities, obviously, because versus how you and you got to share so much of your story growing up and got to weave that into how it can be beneficial for people in practice now.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
um, because it's really important for people to hear. And I hope people felt like they heard something that they could relate to, whether it was from what you were sharing or what I was sharing, maybe a combination of that. I want to make sure that you are able to have the last word in regards to anything else that you want to share that maybe we possibly didn't touch.
Hmm. When I came in, I thought I want to talk about, and I'm not going to talk deeply about it, but it's interesting how organically we just went back and forth wherever we needed to go, and there was not this rigidity to the conversation, which is really nice. But I think one of the things that I'm finding as I'm a therapist that's gone through all the things I've gone through, grief and like, trauma, separation, attachment stuff, whatever, all the things that, I can't go on and on here because we'd be here for like 3 days. But I think one of the things that I want to leave people with is to you have one life. We have one life, right? And sometimes we wait for that moment to go to therapy, like the right moment to go to therapy, the right moment to be a parent, the right moment to get married. There's all these things that we try to do right because, we have expectations or we think this is the timeline. And I think I just want to let folks know, and I don't know if this is from my therapist lens or my human lens. I think I want to leave folks uh, this thought of live your life and live your life the way the way feels most meaningful to you. Because oftentimes we live our lives for others. And I don't think we do it consciously, but I think I would leave folks with the thought of do some reflection, think about your life, think about who you really are. And I'm not saying go to therapy because I don't know if that's your path, but live your life, whatever that means. And that's actually just like a journal prompt. What does it mean to live my life, right? And I think that's what I would leave people with, just the thought of what does it mean to live my life, like the way I want to. So
I love
not
that. And I
not super deep, but
no, but I also want to remind people something that you said at the top of the podcast of what your therapist asked you of um what did or how did you feel you were loved or you weren't
how did you
loved?
know?
How
Yeah,
did
how
you
did
know
you know
you were
you're
loved? And I think that we should all reflect on that because
yeah.
I think if we reflect on that, that will help us figure out like where we felt it was lacking, or maybe we didn't. Because, like you said, as children, we may not, we, I think oftentimes as children, we think attention is love. That's why you get kids who act out just to get some
Mhm.
sort of attention
That was
because,
me.
yeah, I did in different ways. I was still a good kid, but I did.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I was still a good kid, but I did push the line. I pushed the
Yes,
line hard.
that's
Yes.
yeah, same, same. Because I
I
was the
knew where to pull
oldest
back.
too, right? But I was also 5 and 7 years older
Yeah,
than my sisters. So I pushed the line for sure, but
yeah.
I was still responsible. But then I was like, I don't want to be responsible. I just want to have a good time.
Yeah, of course, because you were like, I don't want to be responsible. That's very developmentally appropriate for you not to want to be responsible. Yes, but that's a good question. It's one that hit me hard. Yeah, how do you know? How did you know you were loved? How do you know you're loved now? And how do you know you're living the life that you want? I mean, how do we know? Like, how do we
Yeah.
know, right? We have
You know
to
what's
be
really
reflective.
interesting when you're saying that? I was thinking, my mom, like I told you up top, would always, she would tell us she loves us all the time and everything.
Mm.
And as a family, we don't ever get off the phone without saying, I love you,
Oh.
ever. We always say, okay, love you, bye. Okay. Like we always, me and my sisters, me and my parents, my husband, he's now in that like
Mm.
I
Mhm.
I was like, no, because he used to tell me, you always say that. And I go, yeah, but you just never know if that's the last conversation. And I need to know that God forbid that's the last conversation I have with you, with my family, with my parents, even my mother-in-law.
Mhm.
I tell her, okay, love you, Letty,
Mhm.
all, and with my friends, I'm like, okay, love you,
Mhm.
because that's just what I grew up with. And now that's something that he has. And that's something that when I get off the phone, when I talk to my stepsons, my sons, I'm like, okay, love you, because
Mhm.
that is just something that's really important. And those things can rub off on people. They've, like I said, they've rubbed off on my husband, where now he's like, okay, love you. And I'm like, love you too. Bye. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's, it's, it might sound silly to some, but for me, it's so important. I'm so glad that that's something that my parents always
Mhm.
did and said before we got off the phone, because
Mhm.
it's a small thing, but it's really huge at the same
Yes.
time.
I agree. I agree. And I do that now with my daughter and my partner, but it was something that I learned that I wanted to do. This is how I wanted to change from one generation to the next. I want to say it verbally. I wanted to make sure that it was heard.
Yeah.
So we do that. We do the same thing now, but sometimes it's a little bit of like a discomfort because I'm not used to it. I'm still in that process of getting used to it because I don't come from that generation of someone hanging up or, like saying goodbye with I love you. If my mom did that 5 years ago, I'd be like, what? You love me?
Who are you?
Oh,
Where's
yeah.
my mother?
Yeah, I was like, I know you love me. You don't have to say it. But now she does. She'll say te quiero, and it's just so sweet. She's also learning to show her love the way she knows I want to receive it, which is very sweet because I never really like gave her instructions as an adult, but I think she knows now.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing so much. I appreciate your time. Um, People want to reach out, you're at tonalitherapy.com, which I will make sure are in the show notes. And that is also your Instagram.
Yes.
Adriana, you I had such a good time talking to you. I know we covered a lot of different things. You shared so much. Like I said,
Yeah.
again, I really, truly appreciate it. And, mi gente, she does online therapy as well. So reach out. The the beautiful thing of having somebody else, you know, that comes from your culture is that there's an understanding there that sometimes
Yeah.
isn't there in any other with somebody else. So maybe she's the right person, maybe she's not. But if you are struggling with that intergenerational trauma, if you are struggling with your place in your, within your siblings, or you're having that struggle of what I want to do versus what my family expects of me, reach out, because we, so many of us struggle with this. You're not alone, and you don't have to walk through this alone. You have people here with specialized training who have done the work that want to help you. So I encourage you to reach out.
Thanks, Jessica, for having me. Like, truly an honor. Truly.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, I had such a good time, and I can't wait till I'm in the Bay Area and I get to,
Yes.
then we can meet in person. So
Yeah, definitely reach out. I will hold it to it. If I see you on the grams and you're in the Bay, I will call you. I will
yes.
send you a message. Yeah, this was really fun and way more yeah, way more fun than I expected for a podcast. So yes,
Yeah,
keep
good.
doing your thing.
Yay, did I live up to the hype that you
Yeah,
had in your head?
you did. You did. And I've been following you for some time, so this was a long time coming. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Until next time, mi gente.
Hola, mi gente. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. If you would like to hear more wine and more chisme, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Saludos.